Welcome to the latest episode of Empowering Women in Construction. And I'm here with Jessy Gomes, an amazing, incredible lady. So much to say, but I'm not going to spoil it for you, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. So, Jessy, could you just tell us a little bit about who you are and a little bit about your journey in terms of what you're involved in now?
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Georgina. Thank you for inviting me. So I'm a creative thinker working in construction. I do my area of expertise, it's health and safety. So I've been doing so for the past decade in the UK. But before that, I worked in France for about 5 years, doing quality management, health and safety, but also environmental management and sustainability. So at the moment I work for University College London, and I kind of step away from the main limelight of working for a main contractor for many years, and now I'm more into the new technology side of construction because working for UCL, it's a research organization. So I do work within the engineering school, and it's all about flying drones, painting some object which can be used for construction, but also bridge testing rig where we crush some specimen, trying to see how much they can hold on, and also working with robots as well. This is going to be something we might see in the future in construction, which in terms of health and safety, this is going to help a lot, because if you have robots who can do things instead of human, and I'm thinking also in terms of like repetitive task, this is something to watch out. So this is what I do.
So you're doing all the fun stuff.
Yes, it's fun. I'm not actually doing it. I'm just trying to get the researcher and student to don't hurt themselves while trying to change the world.
Yeah, just an easy job. And it doesn't sound fun at all, does it? It
No,
sounds
it's not.
absolutely,
It's
it's really
difficult.
exciting. That's brilliant, Jessy. So what made you decide to sort of change that? As you said, you had a shift, or you had an idea that you wanted to do something a bit different, not kind of, the conventional side of things. What is it that kind of drew you into that side?
I mean, I've always been interested into new technology and what new technology can offer to construction, but it didn't really come organically because I think I had a lot of fun working for many contractors and being a consultant in construction for many years. Um, but at the end of 2019, I had a baby, and things didn't really um, um, ended up really well for me returning back into the workplace. The experience was a bit of paradigm shifting for me, and I just ended up leaving the organization due to returning from maternity and not being understood. Uh,
Mm.
and it's a bit more than that as well, because I think that maternity is really something that women do suffer, and I've been quite advocating around that. So yeah, I after that I didn't work for a year, and I rather be honest, I was depressed because I left my job, and then I had this opportunity to work for UCL, and I think that work is good for you. And I'm one of this old school one who thinks that sometimes it's good to get yourself out there and start doing something, because you get this sense of purpose as well. So I needed to get myself back into the world of working. So I did find an easy way to come back and easing, and now I'm ready to smash it all.
Wow, I don't know if you're ready. I think you already are smashing it, to be quite honest. And wow, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing, your journey around that. And I think one of the things that we've had some conversations with some of the other women in this podcast is around, you know, the differences within the industry, within the kind of conventional construction industry, around how they deal with women, and, you know, thinking about maternity and how that affected you. That's, you know, that is really something that needs to be looked at, because that shouldn't be happening, and it shouldn't have taken you to that place. And it's, you know, what do you think are some of the reasons for that?
I mean, it's easy when you look at the construction demographic. We have like 80, I'd say probably 90% of male, and men, and out of this 80%, it's 80% white male. And you have about 10 to 13% women, according to the latest statistics. And out of this 10%, there are probably 1% of women working actually in a construction site, like being on site, because I worked in construction, but I was on and off, and I wasn't always based on site. So yes, the issue, it's all down to our society and the patriarchal way of being organized. And unfortunately, construction is one of these industries that is really male dominated, and being a woman, you are mostly penalized. And I know that there are exceptions, and I'm talking just from my own experience, because not all the women coming back from maternity have an horror stories, but things didn't go well for me. And this is, I really want to reemphasize that I'm talking from my own experience. So yeah, definitely the fact that the construction is male dominated, this is an issue for women. An organization have to do better to welcome this woman to feel valued as well as part of this industry, and also have flexibility to work around when you have. It's not all about children, but often women have the burden of being carers as well. So they could care about elderly person, and they are overworked and burnout. So there definitely a shift to be done into the way we are operating. And with COVID coming, a lot has been done, but I feel like sometimes we're kind of reversing back, and it's important to not reverse back. We have this opportunity to start from a blank sheet of paper and like draw a new organization, an organization where, yes, there's more flexibility. You know that people have children. I mean, now we had COVID, it's like, oh, everybody have children going through the screen. We had children before. We had husband before. We used to work from home before. But it just made me smile when like everybody were parents. And that people were parents, and I was like, yeah, we were before, and now it's acceptable to hear some children at the back because you're working from home. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah, it's this flexibility and review all the strategy around people, because it's not about driving and making the stakeholder and the investor happy. It's also about your employee.
I think that's so valid, Jessy. So you mentioned something about employees and women in particular, how they can feel valued, and you know, that thing around the flexibility. It was so funny that in COVID we became humans, you know, not that we're necessarily fully out of it, but there was a real sense that, hold on a minute, behind all of the work there are human beings, and we're all going to actually acknowledge that and accept that. And I think what you've mentioned is that we do really need to take those things on board and not, you know, get back to the way that we were, but really start to do things differently. So how do you think that, you know, the big construction companies, how do you think that they could actually make women feel valued? There's something you mentioned around flexibility, which is great, but do you think that's enough? Is there more that we could do?
No, it's not enough. Flexibility, it's one of the elements, but something else you have to understand is that we have really poor representation of women at the leadership level.
Mm.
There are plenty of reasons, and one of the reasons I'm going to give to you, it's like women, most of the time, we want to go for the jobs. We don't been given opportunities, but also we often shy off to try to have this difficult conversation. So, and even sometimes you try to have them and it doesn't work out, but I think that women, we need to emphasize certain skills we need to get, and negotiation skills. It's really important. Having sponsor in a workplace to sponsor women. I think this should be compulsory. Every woman should have a sponsor in organization, because you can try to work your, excuse my French, your A off in an organization. If you don't have the right sponsor, if you don't have support and mentoring, you're just not going anywhere. And I'm a living proof. Today, I'm not scared to say, I mean, you see my LinkedIn, and I really want to be raw here and vulnerable. And I've been all the while on my LinkedIn, I've been really clear. I've been sharing everything I went through. But the reality, it's like, for years, I wasn't going anywhere. I wasn't providing the work. Everybody was happy. The client was happy. My organization were happy. I was the only one happy. I should have made the move. I should have the difficult conversation. I should have like moved on when I felt like the organization wasn't valuing me. But what did I do? I stayed. I stayed and I waited because I was thinking that things will improve. And what I want to say to you, anyone listening today, if you feel you are not valued, don't gaslight yourself. Let other people try to gaslight you, and be really self-conscious of that, but withdraw yourself from the situation, because things will get worse. Things will get worse. It's probably going to take a few years to come back up, and it's literally what took me 3 years to come back up. Even though you've seen my shiny LinkedIn, I was kind of a high-functioning person for the past 3 years, and I was going for the big things, trying to prove myself. And I wasn't trying to prove to anyone, in case someone was like wondering why I'm doing all these things. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone. The only person I'm competing with is myself. So just think about it, and don't burn yourself out, because I was there.
So there's something about it, feels like you had a pivotal moment of like realization. So there's one thing about not being acknowledged or valued, but then there's the other part around, well, what is it that you really want? Who do you want to be? And how are you going to go about doing that? And you mentioned that you recognized that you were doing really, really well in terms of, what you were actually delivering, but you weren't being acknowledged for that. Could you tell me some of those? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, apologize. Just before I forget, I mean, you have to be careful, and this is a conversation I had just before you, and I think the person will recognize herself if she listens. We were talking, you need to be careful of false opportunities. This is what's happening. I had this opportunity, but it was a false opportunity. Clearly, I wasn't going anywhere. Clearly, I wasn't supported. And yes, so I had to try to get skills sometimes outside of my day-to-day job. So, for example, by getting involved into corporate bodies, you have a lot in construction. You have CIOB. I was involved with IOSH for 8 years, which really tremendously support me to get this executive leadership skills. Women in construction, this assertiveness to be able to stand in front of a man, and often it's men like twice of your age, and you have to tell them what to do. It could be quite really debilitating for a woman, let me tell you that, because there were times where I was really anxious because men will be showing their power and trying to diminish my contribution and trying to making me feel smaller. Because I was put into a position where I wasn't on power, I was put in a position, but I didn't have the job title to do. And this is about construction. It's also about like this prestige, you know, it's an all boys club. And sometimes if you don't go to the pub, if you don't, I don't say that woman, you have to go to the pub. I've never done it, but you have to show up. And I did the job, I show up. I did show up respectfully. But I think like sometimes women think that they don't have to do it respectfully. And some women went ahead of the curve because they didn't do things respectfully. And you try to think about, what am I doing wrong? How come she's already there and I'm still where I started 5 years ago? Obviously you can't compare journey, but you need to ask yourself the right question. And sometimes it's not your fault, just and I know I've been there, and now since I moved on, things are more shinier.
So there is a point.
Diamond.
So there is that kind of realization, and you have to, I guess, take those moments to assess what's actually happening and start to think through that. And one of the key things, so the reason why we're doing this podcast is because we recognize the importance of diversity and inclusion within workplaces, and in particular in the construction field, there is a massive imbalance between gender, but also let's talk about it. Let's talk about race. You know, let's talk about the fact that you are a woman of color, a very, very beautiful woman of color. I was saying before we started that you're going to put me to shame.
No,
we're all lovely in our own rights, right?
Yes.
But what I'm saying is that
we have internal beauty, we want to have external and internal.
We absolutely do, but you ooze such greatness and a regalness just in the way that you are.
Thank you.
And you're absolutely, you know, absolutely, that's what you're doing, and it's great to say that, because I think we do need to keep celebrating each other in so many ways. But what I'm saying is, you know, in that industry, I know that there's so many things that we could talk about more of a broader stroke around some of the disparities. But in the industry, in construction, what's your experience been like, and being a woman of color as well? What would you say?
I think sometimes I think that being a woman of color or Black, sometimes I don't know how to say, I think that being a woman was a main issue before being Black. Obviously, everything is intertwined. So sometimes you don't know what is the issue. There were times that I didn't know if the issue was because I had an accent, if I had this French accent. Is it because I'm not British? Is it because I'm Black? Is it because I'm a woman? So I like to take it from a woman perspective so I can be relatable to all women. But obviously, I need to be also relatable to women who look like me, because we have to be fair here. The lack of representation. And you have also a lack of recognition, and you have also a lack of, when I say recognition, it's clear, I'm not inventing anything here. We have diversity pay gap. It's not coming from, oh, she's trying to be this bitter, angry Black woman that they like to say. I don't play this narrative. I always go with the statistic, and I always go with the fact. So the facts are here. And for many years, we're still here. I sent you one of my LinkedIn posts. It was 2 years ago. I can't even think that it was 2 years that I was talking about the fact that lack of opportunity. And here we are. We're still talking, performing, because let me tell you something, Georgina, I'm just sick and tired of the performance. They're not even award winner performing actors, you know? So it's becoming just ridiculous now. I think this has to stop, because they're doing all this like, look at what we do, but they're not doing anything. It's more talk than action. And my own experience is like, I've been there, I was there, I wasn't given an opportunity. And it's not just because I was a woman. I know that it's because I was a Black woman. And I know that it's because I became a mother. So think about, I was a triple threat. And I like to play with that. I was a triple, and sometimes I say quadruple threat. Because when you are educated as well, you become like, you become a threat for your line manager, I say. you become a threat for anyone in an organization. And I think coming from being an immigrant, people have to understand that we have this baggage where our parents came from somewhere. I didn't come here to waste my life, you know. I came here to have purpose and to do something. So when I'm there in an organization trying to be loyal and work, I will expect the organization to give back. But unfortunately, we are in a new ages where there's no loyalty anymore. It doesn't provide you loyalty, and employers doesn't provide you loyalty, and it's really tough. And I do believe there's some organization out there that are worth working for. I do believe looking for it. Let me tell you something. But yeah, my experience is like there's nothing direct coming to me. It was all everything coming like a snake, seeing opportunity leaving, telling me just coming back from maternity leave, telling me things like doesn't make sense. I just did a leadership program. You should be trying to let's see what we can do with Jessy, because she really wants to conquer the world. I know some people get annoyed, but this is the way I am, and I have to learn to live with the fact that I'm not conventional, and I like to go for things, and I'm usually really good to achieve whatever I put in my mind. For any woman listening to this podcast or watching this episode, it's like don't get defeated. Don't get defeated, and just keep going and shine, and don't let anybody dim your lights. Just shine, just be yourself, because we have one life.
Absolutely. Yeah, sorry to cut you there. I'm just so like, there's so much that you said there around, you know, the things that were apparent to you that you couldn't necessarily talk about, but that we can all see. So there's, you know, the statistics that you spoke about in terms of, you know, the gaps in the gender pay, and also the representation. Do you know what I mean? If you are trying to aspire to do something, you need to see people that look like you to think actually it's possible, and there definitely isn't enough of that. But then you also just, I'm so inspired by hearing about where you are now and the things that you overcame. Could you just tell us, like, what is it that enabled you to overcome some of those challenges when you felt those, you know, triple, quadruple barriers around, you know, having access to those opportunities? How did you overcome them?
I think it comes down to integrity. I think if I didn't have integrity, I would have lost myself, seriously, because I was to a point that, I was to a point that, it was becoming too much. You need to have integrity, and you need to do introspection. You need to go deep inside yourself and know your worth. You know, I did a TEDx talk, and I think for me, was like, okay, enough of the enough of the complaining about my situation. Okay, Jessy, you've been discriminated. It's okay. Now go over it. What am I going to do? Sit down and cry about it all my life? Some people are like, Jessy, when are you going to speak about something else? You know, we hear about maternity penalty, motherhood penalty, and being a minority. And I'm like, you know what? I will never stop. I will never stop. You need to keep talking about these type of things. And integrity definitely was something that helped me to stay, know yourself enough and stay rooted. Why, remind your why you are what you are, and where do you want to be, and what is your purpose. I think this is definitely that, because I think I did actually lost myself, but I was like always back into track, you know. I was like kind of sliding and then back into track, to the point that it was 3 full years where and it wasn't only COVID, it was like everything. Yeah.
Wow. So there's a lot about, integrity, which I think is such a
Yeah,
very special word.
integrity, knowing yourself, knowing your worth, and be surrounded by a really like a group of people who knows you enough to check on you as well. And also therapy. If I didn't have therapy, I'm telling you, I don't know where I will be. It's really important, because when you get gaslighted, discriminated, you lose your purpose, you lose your vision, and you lose your sense of worth. And you lose your sense of confidence. I lost everything. I didn't know who I was at that point. It's crucial to have like a core, strong basement where you can always rely on this, even if the house that you build like is completely shattered by someone. You need to have this strong foundation where you can still build the house back. And I'm telling you, I had nothing from what happened to me end of 2019. I should have disappeared. I should have been gone and off of the grid. And instead, I just keep shining, and more blessing, more visibility, and more things coming my way, and more opportunities. So yeah.
Wow. So there's a lot of things in terms of like foundational, as you said. So thinking about integrity, I'll go back to that. The reason why is because I think it's something that we don't talk about often enough. And I think it's such a great attribute, because what you're saying there is be true to yourself.
Yeah.
And know that you can, hold your head high and know that you've done what's right, because we have to live with ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We can put whatever we want out there, but until we decide this is who I want to be, and this is what's important to me, not only what's important to me, but what you also mentioned is about purpose, that actually I recognize that I have something great to offer. And that's what's going to get you out of bed every day. This is my why, because I recognize that I'm going to add value to the world. Even if people don't recognize my value, I am going to add value, and I'm going to be the change that I want people to see, because I'm going to be that person that represents in this space. I'm going to be the person to speak about it. I'm going to let my voice be heard. And that's exactly what you're doing, Jessy. So it's fantastic to see that. And I really do hope that it does encourage other women to stand their ground. And what I also love is that you haven't necessarily said that you've had a silver spoon in your mouth. You've fought really hard to be here. And you've also said that it doesn't matter what's going on or where you've come from or the challenges that you faced. Anyone can do it if you just keep going and recognize.
Definitely focus. It's something to have. And sometimes you can find it difficult at times to focus, because I had this difficulty, because when you're depressed and anxious, you can forget about being focused, So you need to accept that you need time to look after yourself, time to heal, time to go through a hurtful experience. And sometimes when you think that the worst happened to you, it's not the worst, because after I left my job, the worst was coming my way, and COVID was one of them. And then you see people living around you, really close family members. So you like, oh, hold on, work is not everything. And I was depressed because I left my work. And in fact, very much more than that. I lost my dad last year. And I remember I will always be seeing, oh, you could have like cut my leg, or I would have lost the parents. I would have not be sad like this. I lost my job, blah, blah, blah. And then I lost my dad. And then I went, what a fool I've been, thinking that my job was the most important things in my life, Daughter, I have a husband, I have a son now. And no, I think organizations really have to understand that people don't own them anything, They have to, sometimes you have to look after your children, you have to look after yourself, and organization won't understand that you need to keep this integrity to yourself and said, okay, I need to look after me. I need to do this is right for me. And I know I have to get a paycheck, but at the expense of what? I will never do that. I will never work to a point to the expense of my own health.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really sorry to hear about your father.
I apologize, I have some work ongoing.
Oh, that's okay, not a problem. We're human, it's
noise.
life. It happens, right? But yeah, thank you so much for sharing about your father. And as I said, I'm sorry that you've had to experience that. But it helps us to put things into perspective and to recognize, you know, what is actually important. And I think I just got like one final sort of question, I guess, and this is a bit more of like a dreaming question to think about what we would love to see change. You're advocating for so many things that you want to see change in this industry, and you're working in the industry yourself. And based on some of the things that we've discussed, where would you like to see it in, let's say, in the next 10 years? You know, where would you like to see the construction industry?
There's still some noise. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, stop. So I think that something really important that we didn't touch. It's like today we have an aging population in construction. So we have like this workforce over 50 years old that's gonna left. My dream is to see all these people, all these dragons, replaced with this new generation of leaders, of thinkers. And it doesn't have to be a woman or diversity ethnic. It has to be people who bring something new. And hopefully, the people who bring something new will be women, will be diverse, and we will be from all walk of life. So for me, it's really to see like this new rainbow of people working in construction. This is to me. Yeah, and this is what I want to see. Because what is really important, it's like historically, all these organizations have been set up by white male. And what I would like to see is a bit of more ownership in construction and seeing diversity of owners. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have a full board of like excellent, diverse people? So this is what I'm looking forward.
Lovely. And even in the statistics, it basically says that you are more successful as an organization if you have more diversity in terms of gender and race in your leadership. So, you know, there's a benefit to everyone. It's a win-win situation. And I love that. Yeah, just to see all the different kind of colors and the diversity within that industry. I think that would make such a difference in the way that it's run, but also just in the collective intelligence, which is actually part of our ROC model, which is a model that we developed specifically around inclusive leadership. And by making it diverse, you bring all the greatness of the collective intelligence into the space, which does cause innovation. So yeah, thank you so much, Jessy. It's been incredible speaking. Obviously, you can tell I could speak to you all day long. We'll probably have to speak some more because there's so much to share, even more so outside of this. But it's been very interesting to hear your story and your journey. And I wish you all the success in everything that you're trying to do. So thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessy.
Thank you.